representing the German umbrella organization of training and development, and we developed a quality management system. And of course, two questions are of interest for us. First of all, do trainers like to certify themselves? And the second question, which is important, is do companies ask for a certification of training and development managers?
Hello, my name is Chiara Martinelli. I'm an Italian consultancy trainer working on a Leonardo project to enhance the use of technology to support learning. I would like to know to what extent is technology used to enhance learning, and how ready, if I may say so, are companies to accept the use of technology for learning.
Okay.
I'm Cristina from Italy. I represent trainers of Italian Association. And I would like to know how important is the support of public administration for training in Europe.
I'm Dominic from Belgium. I'm the representative of EAPRIL, the Association of Learning Professionals. I have a question about the evaluation of training projects. From a theoretical point of view, the models are well known about evaluation of training, but in the practice it seems that they are not used by companies to drive their learning investment. So, what is the solution or the direction to take?
Hello, I'm George. I've been the manager of the Solvay Corporate University. I would like to know if there are equal opportunity to learn regarding your age. Aging of the population, it's a very important thing, and I think we have to take care about those people also.
Hello, I'm Manuel Pexoto, coming from Lisbon and responsible for the representation of the APG, human resources, but also for the trainers. I wanted to ask you to know more evidence and, of course, the tools to measure all the data that we need in terms of getting more facts.
Good morning. I just got my coffee. I'm Patrick, and do you hear me? Yeah. I'm a practitioner, and I'm representing this association, which is called European Training Development and Training and Development Federation. It sounds very big, but it's not so big. I will explain you. But actually, the people you saw there are representatives from the different associations of different countries. And all of us have a lot of questions about our practice. But it's not so easy to find good research. So this is actually what I would like to talk about today. So I would like to do two things. First, I would like to just present ourselves, not too long, but who is ETDF FEFD? Nice to meet you, EAPRIL. And then second, I have a suggestion to you. And I hope this suggestion will help us to have an interactive discussion at the end. Maybe what I'm saying is without value. Maybe not. We will see. So, who are we? What do we stand for? What do we offer? Let me try to tell you in 15 minutes maximum. As you heard, we are an umbrella association. So our members are not individual members, but associations. And most of our members are much bigger than we are. And the only thing we have in common is everybody's working around training and or human resources. If you look to the number of members our members have, it sounds more huge. There are about 146,000 learning and development professionals represented by those associations. So we have Epsilon VOV in Belgium, GARF in France, DVWO in Germany, Italy, Ireland, Malta, Netherlands, Portugal, Spain, United Kingdom. United Kingdom by itself is a few times bigger than all the other ones together. They have a staff of nearly 150 people, and they have about nearly 100,000 members. So they are very big. Switzerland. And a new members, in short, we try also to connect with more Eastern European countries. So some time ago we were together and thinking, what is really what we are doing? What do we believe in? And it looks probably a little bit evident, but still we said one of the things we believe in is we simply believe that what we are doing is important. That development of people is important to keep our quality of life and also to have economical growth. But it's important to have both values in balance. Second, if we look to different European countries, we see all of us have the same problems, the same challenges. On the other hand, we are very different. And so it's important in the work we do to have both, to see what is common and to see what is different. And why do we live? Why do we exist? Because we want to learn from each other. I found that we know very little about other countries. Even the country we are here, Finland, is performing very strongly on education. But if I ask to my colleagues, do you know why? Do you know what's typical about Finland? It's quite hard to answer. Are there people from Spain here? What is one of the topics in Spain which is very important in education? Yeah. What's typical for one of the challenges you have, especially in professional and adult education? You have many people coming in from abroad. So I learned that one of the things that was important is about intercultural skills. And so every country has something special, and I found it's very difficult to learn from each other. And this is our reason of existence. We try to stimulate this exchange. We also try to put learning and development on the agenda. The formal system is very well known and is very important for policy, but everything that comes after is already less known. As you heard, one of our speakers also said, there are more and more 50 people aged 50 plus. How do we help them to cope with this ever-changing world? What are practices on this level? It's hard to find an answer. So this is why we say we want to become like an observatory that is looking for what's common and what's different. And very important is this word European, because all countries do it for themselves. That's their associations. And it's quite easy to find data and research on Spain by itself, on Belgium, on the Netherlands, on Finland. But it's quite difficult to find something that is just comparing them. And if I'm right, the name of your association also starts with Europe. Right, Philip? So we are small. When we come together, it's at a maximum 12 people who represent their groups, but we ourselves are pretty small. Our budget is limited. So we try to grow as a point of inspiration. We're also quite new in the field. Not for ourselves, but especially to our members. When I came here, Philip invited me, I was thinking, what am I going to do there? And how could I do something that is also useful for our member associations? We'll talk about this later. And of course, all of us are learning and training development professionals. This is a little bit different in the way that we are already out of the formal system. We are not talking about teachers or professors or lecturers. We are mostly talking about trainers and coaches who are working for the government or in companies, but in daily work. This is what is typical for what we are doing. Now, what do? We don't have the ability for the moment to have a congress. So one time per year, we exchange. We try to exchange by meeting each other one time a year and also by having a website. Sometimes we try to do European projects together. We also try to have influence on European policy, but it's very new and very important. Alone, we can do very little. So it's important to cooperate. And I'm really happy that we got this invitation to know each other better. This is a list, as you can see, 1-2 times a year we come together. And in the very beginning of this organization, the most important topic were statutes. Maybe you know this, it's if you have a European organization, it's very sensitive. At a certain moment they asked me if I wanted to become president and say, okay, I have one condition, I don't want to talk about statutes. I want to talk about content. Let's try to have one topic every time we come together and learn about each other, what's happening. And so, for example, we had topics about certification. It's very different in many countries. Do you need teachers to be certified, or do you need companies to be certified? And if you certify in our business, learning, is that a good thing, yes or no? Evaluation. You know, in practice, we see that the most important evaluation is still the happy sheet. Although there's a lot of nice theories, which I believe are very good, like Kirkpatrick and other ones, return on expectation, but if we go in practice, now we see that companies are still searching how to do this. And so workplace learning, another one. We try to find out what's happening in different countries. We have a website since 2 years, and the only thing we try to do here, our added value should be, I want to know something about another country. And then you can get there, it's slowly growing. And I hope within 1 year I can put something more, we'll talk about this. We have a newsletter every month. We have a LinkedIn group. Very typical for this group is that most people come from out of Europe. And we have some common projects. That's nice to hear. I think yesterday at the table I also heard somebody talking about game-based learning. Don't know who. For the moment we are also doing a project about game-based learning. And what's interesting about it, it is not serious games. This project is trying to find out if with the games students play already by themselves, which are free, which are not really educational, if they can be used for educational purposes. My son is also a very good gamer, and I met somebody yesterday who also had a son which is a good gamer, and we agreed that the most important thing actually is not the gaming, but the skills he's learning to cooperate with people. Because if they want to fight, it seems they need to be in group to avoid bigger problems. Now, another thing is we try to represent, a little bit influence the policy. Until now we haven't achieved anything. It takes some time. And we could not do this alone, but for this we work together with USIS, Lifelong Learning. Do you know this organization? It's normal. I did research. How many organizations and associations do we have in Europe? More than 200 concerning learning and development. It's amazing. And they are one of them. Why do I say 200? Because there are organizations in each country, but there are also organizations per sector. The transport learning, the banking sector, the chemical sector. And there are also associations from parents. There are associations from civil servants. There are many, many. And USIS, Lifelong Learning, tries to bring them together, have a civil society platform, and they have very good connections with the European Commission. So if things happen, they send us around documents, we can make amendments, and this way we can influence. So we work together with them, and actually I thought we need 3 partnerships. One partnership is with them to have more representation towards the European Union. A second one is with EAPM. That's one of these 200. It means European Association for Personal Managers. That's also something I see in the past. Training and development was here, the guys that make a catalog and give training, and human resources was here, and the CEO was still a lot higher. What do I mean? Learning and development in companies was considered as a cost, not as an investment. And that's very important to change this. I think in Finland, learning and development is an investment. But in the industry, it's now changing. And one of the things we see, and also in our member organizations, is the role of training and development within human resources is becoming more and more important. And a very typical example of this is a new job. It's called Chief Learning Officer. These are people who are on the top level of companies and who are considering how can we make our companies more competitive. It's not anymore about training. It's really about how can our people learn quickly and get around with new projects, with new environments. So this is why we also want to connect with them. And then the third one is the European Association for Practitioner Research on Improving Learning in Education and Professional Practice. This is exactly what we need. Okay, so what would we like to know? I listened to our members, and you heard them. The first one was a little bit silent, I know. But you heard what were their needs, and I tried to bundle the most important questions that we are trying to find an answer on. Not that there is a clear answer, but an overview of practices within Europe. So one question is very simply, within the field of corporate companies, government, but also non-profit organizations like hospitals, for example, how important is learning and development? Is it still a cost, or is it becoming an investment, which is a different way of thinking? Are we still talking about training managers with classrooms and people that come, subscribe, and it's an administrative job? Or are we talking about learning as a strategic way for the companies? In this case, we have learning directors or chief learning officers. This is one thing we would like to know. How is our role changing? The second one is what we are doing in line with what the strategy is? In the past, too many times, we were giving courses that people didn't really need. And you could see, I did a project, for example, for the Belgian Post, last 2 years. 2 years ago, they had more than 120 trainers. And they need to sustain or help about 30,000 people in their learning processes. Now this has gone back from 120 to 25. And those trainers, their job has been changed from classroom to developing tools and coaching. That's a big switch. So in this company, they asked me, how can we bring learning more in line with strategy? So this is a question I have is, to what extent is this really happening? Are we still thinking about, I need to train and the result will be there, or are we more focused on impact? Are we only talking about individual development, or are we also talking about corporate and probably even society development? I found it very strange. If you look to the EU 2020 strategy, who knows it? It's very strategic for Europe. And indeed, just like the 2010 strategy, most of you, same for me, don't know about it. So the Europe 2020 strategy, one of the things it says is we need to evolve towards a knowledge society. Do you know that word? The Chinese, they are not going to a knowledge society, they are going to a learning society. It's a big difference. In a knowledge society, we still think we need to educate people, they have a job and they will perform the job. Maybe in a learning society, we are ready that people have a job today and another job tomorrow. How ready are we to reskill, for example, aged people, 50 plus, to handle change in computers, change in products, etc.? Another question is there government support and does it help us? So these are 3 questions quite generally about learning and training development that we would like to know. It's quite dry, so let me take some water. Then another question has to do with practice, and especially here, it's very difficult to find answers. A question I nearly get all the time is, how do we detect needs? Do we do it by form? Do we do it by interviews? Is there a kind of system? But what do companies need in their learning? Is it IT? Is it languages? Is it technical? Do they need leadership? How do they get it? I found most companies, most organizations are struggling with this today. Second, there are more and more new methods. I remember when I was a student, with Philippe, I think, we got a book. It was about 300 pages, and it was called Learning Methodologies. And you saw things like what I'm doing now, doseren, but you could also have interactive, but this book was like this. Now, since 1995, something changed. We got internet. And internet suddenly gave us a lot of new ways to learn. We have virtual classrooms, but we also had learning management systems. We had e-learning, we had ways to follow up. We could do electronic coaching, we had whiteboards, gaming, etc. So the amount of methodologies to make people learning has become like such a book. Too big for most training or human resources managers. So this is one of the questions I have. To what extent do we use these new methodologies, these new techniques of learning? Is it training, coaching, self-study, e-learning? And it's the same I see, for example, in the project I'm doing with Bpost. As most teachers had to disappear, e-learning became very important. And now we see in many companies the same thing happening. The managers say, wow, e-learning is a lot cheaper. So let's do e-learning. Now research is starting to show the result of this. The result of this is there's no learning. Why? Because most people are not ready to do this. You know, sit and find their own way. We didn't really learn how to learn. So this is also a question I have, and another thing we start to see is working with learning pathways. Now, I learned this already 20 years ago, that this would be the right way. With blended learning, have a lot of actions one after another, instead of just one classroom where you go in and you go out and light it. So do companies work with such pathways? Another question we'd like to know is what exactly is important to learn? Is it leadership? Is it IT? Is it languages? Is it sales, administration? Do we need specific knowledge? It's hard to find out. And do most companies do it by themselves, or do they like to outsource? Very hard to find good data about this. Then you will recognize this, huh? Certification. Germany, for example, it's very important, but they have this question, and they have a DVWO who is doing their own certification. In Italy, there is a project called Quadruple Trainers, where they are looking at what would be the criteria to call somebody a certified trainer. The business, Certiport, is now certifying people for IT skills. It's working very well in the United States and Asia, less in Europe. Do companies, but also students, want certification? Is it useful, yes or no? I don't know. And then the last one is becoming more and more important. To what extent do we use evidence? I found that most of the things that happen in learning and development is based on this. There is very few evidence which is used. What was that? So I would like to know, one of the things I'm doing now within Bpost, the managers, top managers said, yeah, we would like to have evidence. What you are doing there with your learning, does it have impact on our people? They wanted immediate result. That's not possible. So now we work 1 year to build a system that creates evidence. It has to be automated, otherwise you cannot do it. And also, there was any idea about how much e-learning costs, for example. How may research help? This is my question to you. I have a suggestion, and I don't know, maybe this suggestion is totally out of but my idea is mapping L&D, learning and development innovations on a European scale could support the creation of learning and development competences in the field. To say it more practically, if we would have some overviews about what's Finland doing and what's Spain doing and what's interesting there, and we could distribute to our members, maybe the result would be that the implementation of practices from each other would be more fast. This is basically the idea we have. So mapping is trying to give an overview of something, is something we do in nearly every field. And you must admit that when we have a map, it's more easy to find our way. If you are in a city without map, it's pretty hard. Now, we learning and development practitioners, we do our jobs without maps. And you can see it, everybody has his opinion, and we don't know what the other one is doing. So I'm thinking about this idea of maps, but you know, maps of physical things is very easy. But I don't need to tell you that maps of behavior, that's much more difficult. How can we do this? So if I look what's happening in the field, at the top I wrote down what I see happening in many companies or organizations. Training departments become learning and development centers with coaches, online and social learning offerings, and assessment systems that monitor evolving competences of selected talents. I want to say we try to see more and more, they call it competence matrix. You know, somebody has to change from one machine to another. What do they need? And if I have 5 machines and 20 employees, it becomes a little bit more complex. So now more and more we try to help them learning on the field, and we try to monitor it. That's very changing, and actually everybody is wondering, how? What technologies can you use? What methods can you use? How are you doing it? How are you doing it? So, but at the other hand, yeah, today most decisions are based what we learn from networking or what we feel, but very seldom on research. At the other hand, the field is quite demanding, and they say, we are looking for factual information. It's not really available, but it's important, it's factual. Second is, sometimes, I will show you, you do find good research, but most of the research is quantitative. It's looking how many, how much, which is different from comparing best practices, which is more qualitative and more hard to find. Then, third of all, you should not underestimate, and you know that it's everywhere the same, we are quite hasty, and especially in Belgium, we are very hasty. We have little time. So, I see it for myself, we don't have the time to read articles. We'd like to have fast, easy digestible information. And I think in the bridge from research to practice, this is a very important element. And easy digestible does not mean too much simplified. The information should stay full but easy digestible, fast. Another one is useful. Many times I hear people going to conferences and they come back and say, yeah, I hear a lot of things and it's very nice in theory, but what can I do with it? I think it's important to provide answers which are practical. And then last but not least is evolving. There was a time, I remember when my father finished university, he still had the idea that with this information he could do this job for the rest of his life. Actually, it was not true. Already in the 70s, when computers came there, he was a lecturer in mathematics, things started to change. And he started to learn in the evening. And now, if I look, most of the colleagues I work with, next to their job, they need to follow all kind of learning, training, read, because the practice is changing all the time. Only on this little field of, for example, game-based learning, year by year, we see things evolving. Also e-learning, for example, I remember, we have the thing now, it's very simple, we need to make a software animation to explain how a computer program is working. Well, 5 years ago, it took me 2 to 3 days to do this. With new tools, I can do it in a few hours. Is it nearly time? 5 minutes. Okay, I'll go a little bit faster. So this is a suggestion, is to make a kind of maps that evolve and gives us an overview. But that's still a very abstract idea. So I went to search to find out what is there already available. And I started with a very practical question. is at what age should we start to learn foreign language? I was amazed when I go quite a lot to China, that in China, if you talk with young people of 7, 8 years old, most of them speak English. They start to learn second language at a very early age. So I wondered, how is it in Europe? Do you know at what time, what country are you from? Denmark. You know at what time children start to learn foreign language in your country? 10 years. And do you know it in Spain? Would it be interesting to know? Same for me. I was also wondering. I looked, and I must say I was pretty amazed, but on this topic, because it's policy, there is very good research. And this is what I want to show you. This is a small map. In one map, it's telling me of all the countries when they start to learn a foreign language. And I always thought that the Belgians were very late. Now, to my big surprise, there is one country in Europe where children start to learn a second language at 3. It's Belgium. Not the whole country. But we have a little part of the country, the German-speaking people, who really need a lot of languages. So this is what I mean with fast, easy, digestible information. That's very valuable, because then we could see what's the impact. And I see, just simply with my own son, who started to learn a second language at home at a very young age, it's more easy. Now I am over 50, and I'm trying to learn Chinese. My daughter, who is now 3 years, in 5 weeks did the same thing like me in 5 years. So why wait? But I don't know, this is an example. What I want to say is about mapping. I also found this website. Do you know it? The Mason Project, which is trying to map all kinds of indicators, country by country, and it's very fast. You look at it, and you can see immediately the difference between countries, but it's quantitative. And I didn't find anything about learning and development. Most research today is focused on formal education. Then you have some companies which are doing research which is easy digestible, like the Hackett Group and the Boston Consultancy Group, which we are working together. But most of this is HR. And learning and development is like nearly non-existing. Then there's Gartner. They are very close to what I really would like to see. But they are focused on technology-enhanced learning. Okay, we are nearly there. Now, yes, they are focused on technology-enhanced learning. What I want to show you here is they use these tools, hype cycles, they call it, and magic quadrants, which are very nice examples of how to map information and how to very quickly get a view on markets or on things that are happening. Okay, I go a little bit further. Burson and Associates give a very good overview, but 2 disadvantages. 1, it's expensive, and 2, United States only. So still no answer. And then something happened. While I was looking, I found telmap. Do you know this project? The University of, that's hard to say the name of the city, Jyväskylä, is participating in this project. This is a project, and look, dynamic road mapping, collaborative road mapping in the field of learning. In this case, technology-enhanced learning. And this is an initiative of universities. I think EAPRIL should be aware. And I'm very interested in what is the technology of tomorrow. And look, I found this page that just in a few minutes gives me what's really important. So this is what I'm looking for. There has even been a network of excellence for professional learning. I say, wow, I didn't know that, but it stopped in 2007. Although it had other projects that came out for the role project, you know this? Maybe some people know this. But okay, this is my message. I would like to find something like this, but more on learning and development than only on technology. So how could it look like? I don't think you need to make a book anymore because that's not evolving. So I believe a kind of website could be a good tool to do this. Second, and that's what I want to discuss with you later, is a kind of comparative, a growing comparative table. That people say, if I want to know, for example, how are needs detected, I go to look to this table, and after 5 minutes, I'm inspired, and I have ideas of other countries. Who? There's a question remark there. But I think this is something that could be a kind of cooperation, step by step, not too big in projects. We need to look how to finance it. I don't think you can do this in 1 week. If you can handle 1 question per year, after 5 years, you have already something very valuable. And I was wondering, but this is for the discussion, shouldn't we think about the telmap ID and join and broaden it? Later maybe we can look in detail. And very important, and this is why I'm here, is the last sentence. I think there's a need to build a stronger bridge from research to practice. Voilà. Thank you very much for your attention. And we're ready for